questions that people have sent in and voted on, that everybody wants to know the answer to, me including. If, let's say, we all love each other unconditionally, how can I decide who is to be my partner? Is this based on physical attraction? Isn't this a contradiction with this higher state of consciousness? Okay, so if you love everybody unconditionally, how can you possibly decide who is going to be your partner? That's the question. Because it seems then there's no preference anymore. Or if it's physical attraction, isn't there a contradiction? If you're in a higher state of consciousness, then shouldn't or not be physically attracted to anybody? Is that the implication, the question? Well, the love we're talking about, the unconditional love towards human beings and life forms, is see, what is it that you love in the other when you love unconditionally? You don't love their physical form, you don't love their psychological form, their personality. The unconditional love goes deeper. It's a transcendent love, that what you love is not the form, but the formless essence of the other. And you can only love that when you can sense within yourself that dimension, the formless, when you can be still and present enough and then look at another human being. And then you can recognize something. What you recognize is, for lack of a better word, the consciousness, which is the essence of the other human, as it is the essence of who you are. Consciousness prior to the consciousness being born into some kind of form, personality, which is there, and the physical form, which is there. But in every being, there is still the dimension of consciousness that is prior to form. Although the human being has become form, consciousness has assumed form, has incarnated, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that the formless and timeless consciousness is lost. It's still there as the essence. And when you can sense it in yourself, you can sense it because you're still and present enough. From that dimension in yourself, you can sense it in the other, and that is love. It's basically a recognition that in essence the other is the same as you. But then, of course, there's always, that is the transcendent dimension to every human being. In addition to that transcendent dimension, there is a form identity of every human being. Every human being has a physical form and an emotional form and a mental form. That's the inner, that's the personality. So the physical appearance and the personality consisting of mental, emotional conditioning and so on. So there are the two levels. The unconditional love towards all humans is the transcendent love. You love the formless, you recognize the formless as yourself in the other. But then you are still here as a form too, and the form may respond to another form. The physical, there can be physical attraction. It is not incompatible with the transcendent realization, although some ancient or not so ancient traditions may tell you that. It is not incompatible. You can have physical attraction on the level of form. You can also have an attraction towards the mental, emotional form of that other human being because it resonates with something in your own form. So that means you may be drawn to another human being physically or mentally, emotionally, because you resonate with that. And then perhaps you enter into a relationship. So that different levels operate. The transcendent remains. It can become obscured through excessive attachment, of course, to the mental or emotional dimension in the other. So in a relationship, the realization of essence identity, as I sometimes call it, can become obscured when form identity takes over completely, which could happen through the pain body, which could happen through emotional, getting identified with arising emotions and losing touch with the transcendent. Yes, that can happen, but it's not incompatible. Everybody's challenge is to balance the two in their lives, in their relationships, to relate to the other on the transcendent level, and at the same time, if it's there, on an emotional, mental, physical level. Without the transcendent dimension in a relationship, it's not ultimately satisfying and it cannot really truly work for long if the transcendent is missing completely in a relationship. It's physical attraction and attraction between personalities is not enough to keep it going. It can be going for a while, but then it becomes frustrating and you see more and more of the limitations of the other person. And the other person sees more and more of your limitations, which are always there. And when you live together, it becomes very obvious that the other person has his or her limitations. Now, as long as the realization of the transcendent dimension is there, that's fine. Those limitations can exist within the space of the transcendent, and they're not destructive of the relationship. Now, you may find it's sometimes easier to have this unconditional love towards people that you don't know so well than towards people with whom you share a lot of past. Because they're the past, the form identity of that person can be very powerfully there in your mind, in your interaction. So that's the challenge of being present with family members, parents, grown-up children, and so on. And of course, as you know, Ram Dass recommends, if you think you're enlightened, as a test, he recommends that you spend 2 weeks with your parents, and that will tell you whether you're really enlightened or not. Go and spend 2 weeks, stay with your parents for 2 weeks. In most cases, that is a good test, unless your parents are enlightened, in which case there's not much point in using it. It doesn't tell you anything. That